This show is brought to you by Whatever You Say Productions, starting conversations since 2018. Are we ready? In the wise words of Michael Jackson, come on! Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of At the Newsstand. We are thrilled to have you tuning in from all over the world. A special shout out to our listeners. We see you. We love you. We're thrilled that you are with us. You guys know me. My name is Samantha, and today I have Abby and Paige doing the intro with me. Paige, where have you been?
I have been working hellacious hours.
Yes, indeed.
Cool. My team.
Well, congratulations to you because you recently got a promotion because you are V important, and I'm really proud of you. So great job.
Thank you.
I can't find you. I don't know where you are anymore, but yeah, congratulations.
I nap a lot now.
I feel you. I do. I feel you. And Abby, my dear, how are you doing after your harrowing birthday experience and also taking me to the Gavin DeGraw concert for your birthday? You took me to a concert for your birthday.
Hey, it was free. I'll take you anywhere when it's free.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm excited. We just got our tickets for RuPaul's Drag Race for October.
My God.
My wig. I can't wait.
I know. It's
cannot wait.
Awesome. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm already looking forward to it. No, it's going to be amazing. And actually, speaking of RuPaul's Drag Race, we made a pretty big announcement this week for WISP that in July, we are going to be premiering not one, but two LGBTQ shows. We've got Fifi's Funhouse, which is going to cover the drag community, as well as costume design and the conversations that are taking place, makeup tips, all of that. And we are also going to be premiering Allow Me to Translate, which is going to be hosted by Jason, who was our most recent guest on When I Knew. Jason is transgender, and he is so looking forward to really talking about the trans community, not just from a social standpoint, but also from an academic and a scientific and a medical standpoint. I mean, this is a real thing. There are literally transgender people everywhere, and I'm thrilled to give him and more people like him a louder voice. What do you guys think? Paige, I'll start with you.
I am so excited. Like, one of my best friends at work, he sits right next to me. He's gay. He has a wonderful husband. He's Mr. P. I'm Miss P because we're two peas in a pod. So I'm so excited that we have these two shows that focus on the LGBTQ community. It's awesome.
I thank you. I'm so glad that you feel that way. And I knew that you would. And Abby, of course, I mean, we're going to see all of the amazing drag queen performers. Like, obviously, you are so excited.
Oh, I'm beyond excited and truly honored that both Fifi and Jason are allowing WISP to be the platform for their message and to share what they have with the world. So I'm super excited. I can't wait for them to both come out in July.
Yes, here. I love that. Very well said. And Paige, you and I are going to be recording the culture segment for this podcast. We announced that last week. I want to dip into it very, very quickly with you. You and I were very lucky that we had your wonderful neighbors, Mike and Fred, growing up as a regular part of our lives. And I really, without sharing my opinion, I'd like to ask, how did having a gay couple growing up next door, your parents, it was just no skin off their nose, it was totally normal. How do you think that helped mold and shape your understanding and your perception of the gay community?
So growing up, I mean, it just became the norm for me, having these two wonderful men next door. Sam, you were always over there with me swimming in their pool.
Yep.
And when
the
my dad always told me,
Halloween bags, not Halloween candy. Yes, Halloween bags. Mike and Fred used to go into New York City, go to the Godiva store, but have put together these beautiful Halloween gift bags for the kids. And they had enough for like all of us and then our close friends and other kids in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't even want to know how much they must have spent, but they gave out like 30 of those bags, if not more. It was nuts. But yeah, let's also, Paige, do you remember when we would go over to their house and it was so beautifully designed. And they used to tell us that like all of their books, couches, statues, and paintings were poisonous. And if we touched them, we would die. So
Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
we went over there, that was how they kept their house very clean. And actually, parenting hack 101, I really like that trick. But I love it. It was very normal. I do have a favorite memory other than, of course, the pool and the poisonous house and Halloween that you'd like to share about Mike and Fred. Maybe something, an anecdote about their marriage and their relationship that you got to witness.
I mean, they were some of the most loving people I ever met. They had an amazing sense of humor. I remember my dad telling me way back when my mom and dad first built the house. My mom is from the Midwest, so you didn't see a lot of outwardly open gay couples at that time. And so my dad one time went over there, and my mom came like a few minutes later, and he had Mike and Fred and my dad all plotted for them to ham it up and just be kissing on each other and everything to see how my mom would react. And she loved it. But that's who my mom was. I mean, they were amazing. Yeah. They were amazing.
They absolutely were.
Fred is now gone, but Mike's still around.
Mike's still kicking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
my dad saw him about a year ago.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that everyone keeps in touch. And I think it really is important, at WYSP, our main focus is to start conversations. And I think that a lot of that, especially surrounding the LGBTQ community, really just has to do with exposure. I was telling a story on Instagram the other day on my story where I had bumped into some friends of my parents here in town, and I told them that we were interviewing Jason on When I Knew and that he is transgender. And their response was, "How did you find one?" And I'm thinking, my goodness, what do you mean? How did I find one? They're everywhere. So I think that really giving people that unbridled exposure, but from two men who are so thoughtful and well-spoken and really experienced with speaking about their communities and their gender and their sexual orientation and everything that comes with it, I think it's going to be absolute dynamite. So it is not just a hen party here at the Newsstand. We are also joined by Mr. CorBen Williams. My dear, how are you?
I'm so good, Howard. I feel like it's been ages since you and I last spoke.
Well, we were on the show together last week, so it hasn't been too long, but you and I are going to be airing our beef about the revival of Oklahoma. Girl, I know that you're going to come for me. I'm going to come for you. It's not going to be cute. But all right, everyone. So here's what we have coming up on this episode. Of course, we've got Abby and Paige premiering Abbycadabra, Pesto Page-O. Then we're going to get into It's Bro Time with Mr. Mike Kitlas and our dear Abby. And then we're going to wrap things up with me and CorBen talking about the Tony Awards and, of course, the freaking Oklahoma revival. So let's get into it without further ado. The world premiere of our Cuisine and Home segment, Abbycadabra, Pesto Page-O.
Hello, everybody. Paige and I are beyond excited to welcome you.
So excited.
Oh my God, the name just makes me giggle. Abbycadabra and Pesto Page-O. We are going to be talking all about cuisine and home. And we thought to kick it off, we would start with, summertime, time for picnics and barbecues. And what are some things that Paige and I like to bring to barbecues? But before we get into that, I think we should tell the people kinds of things we like to cook at home. What are our favorite spices to use, or a favorite herb, favorite ingredient? So Paige, I'm going to ask you first, since you went to culinary school. You are a true chef, and I am as Sam calls me, the Food Network princess, because I love it. I live on it. I think I'm a real chef. I'm not. So tell me, Paige, what are your favorite things?
So, well, in my home out here in wonderful Arizona, where it was 112 degrees today, I have a boyfriend who is a huge carnivore. So we actually have a giant meat locker in our garage that is just filled with meat, frozen meat.
That's awesome.
I mean, every night we gotta have meat. But I'll tell him to go and say, pick what meat he wants. And then I'll, of course, go to my favorite go-to things with mushrooms. I love cooking with mushrooms. You gotta have your garlic and onion powder always, your salt and pepper. I have mine mixed in a little bowl. I don't keep them separate. Um, I do a keto diet, so I actually don't eat any carbs, but he does. So usually I'll make some kind of yummy rice or noodles to go with his stuff. And I actually really like doing kind of like some zoodles or something. Those are a huge trend. Or I can usually use avocado as a platform. I love avocado. You can get them super cheap out here because we share the border with Mexico. It's awesome. It's really kind of a crapshoot every night though, because I let him pick the meat and then I kind of go build off of that. I build usually a sauce and a side. There's got to be a vegetable because you got to stay healthy.
It's like your own little Iron Chef or Chopped. Here's your secret
Oh yeah,
ingredient. And
yep.
away you go.
My boyfriend hands me a different basket every night.
I love it. I love it. That's so great.
Well, what about you, Abby? What do you usually keep in your refrigerator, your spice cabinet, your pantry?
I keep a lot of chicken. My boyfriend, when we started dating a little, 2 years ago, exactly last Friday, he had he had a very limited diet. He didn't like anything, as I say, with flavor, aka
Picky
spices.
eater.
Oh, very. Like fried food, mac and cheese. That's pretty much all he ate. And pizza. Lots of pizza. So it was quite a change, but I have expanded his palate, which is nice, which means I get to go back to cooking lots of
Heck
things.
yeah, girl.
Right. So a lot of it is mostly just salt and pepper and Italian herbs. So either like an Italian seasoning mix or herbs de Provence or something like that. Nice and easy because like you, Paige, I work late. I get home. I'm tired. I'm just like, what can I make really, really fast? But I have lately really enjoyed coming up with new ways to use things that are left over in my refrigerator. So, for example, the other night, actually, we should probably do a segment on that. But the other night, we had leftover chicken breasts and broccoli and rice, and I whipped together this cheesy chicken rice casserole with broccoli. So good. And since everything was already cooked, it took like less than 30 minutes. I felt like Rachel Ray rocking my 30-minute meal. And he loved it. He loved it. So I like to try to like sneak flavor like garlic and onion powder, like you were talking about, into casseroles like that because he doesn't taste them as much.
Right. Okay. And see, my boyfriend loves that stuff. He calls it shovel food. He can just shovel it into his mouth and it's done because he works construction all day and he doesn't want to have to cut up his own food.
There you go. Nice and easy. Well, let's get into our topic today, our picnic barbecue food.
Yes.
And do you want to start and talk about, I believe you're talking about some delicious pasta salad?
Yes. So something out here in Arizona, we really don't get to do picnics in the summer.
A little hot.
It's a little hot. Today we got to 112. We're expected to about 114 on Wednesday. So.
Oh God, that's awful. I'm so sorry.
We'll pretend to picnic inside though, and I
Okay.
still love making summer picnic foods. So one thing that I absolutely love to make is a pasta salad, really simple, with crab meat, basil, garlic, tomatoes. Super easy, little olive oil, delicious, light. So with something like this, you gotta make it ahead because you gotta do the pasta, let that cool, and then mix your ingredients together. And I always like to make it the night before and let it sit in the fridge overnight so that all those flavors get married and just this delicious basil-y, garlicky pasta dish. The ingredients in this are super easy, super quick. You're going to just get 1-pound box of spaghetti noodles, or if you prefer shells or elbows, you can do that as well. I really like using rotini too because it holds the flavor in. Then you're going to need about 1/4 to 1/3 cup of olive oil, always extra virgin, gives it a really nice earthy flavor. A couple tablespoons of butter, gives it that smooth, creamy texture, not too much of it in there. I like to use a lot of garlic. So I'll use up to 8 cloves of garlic. You can, of course, always cut that back. If you're not a huge garlic fan, you're going to want to chop that up, mince it up real nice, because this is a cold salad. So you're not going to want to get huge chunks of garlic in your mouth. I love basil, fresh basil. If you are easier for you to buy the prepackaged cut up stuff, it works just as well. I'm all about the super fresh. And you're going to want about a half a cup of basil chopped in fine ribbons, and then some cherry tomatoes. I really like getting the heirloom, the different colored ones. It adds a beautiful pop of color to the salad. It makes it appealing to the eye. I quarter those, and I use about a cup to a cup and a half of those. Then you're going to want to use some salt and pepper. It's to taste. So you're going to want to start off just with a pinch of each and mix it, and you're going to want to taste it and see where it is at for your flavor. And then I use Dungeness crab. I love going to Sprouts and Whole Foods. I know that's expensive. If you can get your regular local grocery store and just get a can of prepackaged crab, that works just as well. If you don't love crab, use some cooked shrimp or prawns. It goes just as well with this. Now, it's super easy. You cook the pasta up. You're going to cook some of the garlic in there with the oil, add the pasta to that. You're going to add the tomatoes to that, and then the crab, and toss it all together. You're going to want to let it cool before you add the basil, so your basil isn't turning brown and wilty and gross. So let that cool, add that basil in, saran wrap it, put it in the fridge, and you're done. It's quick and easy. It serves about 4 people. You can always double it up or cut it back to fit whatever crowd you're serving at the time.
That sounds so good. I never would have thought to put crab in a salad. Like,
oh, it's
that's
delicious.
Genius. I love crab.
Me
crab.
too. And it's like coming from the East Coast. That's where I grew up. I miss it. I live out here in the desert now.
I'm gonna have to try the salad this summer. I'm excited. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Absolutely. So what do you have on the menu for us today, Miss Abby?
Oh, I have a tried and true barbecue summer picnic staple. Deviled eggs.
Oh, I just made 2 dozen of those over Memorial Day weekend. They all got eaten. I love deviled eggs. Love them.
They're so good. They go so fast. And I know there are so many different ways you can make them now with avocado and bacon. And I think I've seen some with Creole seasoning, like this, that, and the other thing. But I have a tried and true recipe, parts of which I've taken from my grandma. So you know it's good when it comes from grandma.
Oh, yeah.
So, right? And I've added dill is the newest thing I've added to it. I've started adding it. I love dill. One of my favorite places in my hometown makes clam chowder with dill. It's just like beyond good. So here we go. So this is for a dozen eggs. Okay, so which will give you, 24 halves, 12 servings, or, 2 servings, depending on how much you like them. So the first thing is you got to boil your eggs, obviously. You can't make deviled eggs with raw eggs. So here's a trick that my grandmother taught me because I never was getting them to come out right. You put your eggs in a pot and you put cold water on top just till they're covered, maybe a tiny bit over being covered. And you put them on the stove, you put it on high till it boils, and then you boil it for 10 minutes. Pour the hot water out and then run cold water over them until they're nice and cool. And then they're super easy to peel and you're ready to go. And they're perfectly done every single time. So I always, it's funny when I'll be like, oh, the water's boiling. Wait, how long did it boil? Uh-oh.
Well, my least favorite part is the peeling. So I'm going to have to try this technique.
Yeah, the peeling, I find like, maybe half. Sometimes I'm lucky and it's like 3/4 of the eggs I have no trouble with. But there's always 1 or 2 that end up breaking in half. And here's a trick. If they break in half and you can't use them, you just chop up the whites and you add it to your egg yolk mixture. And it just gives you extra filling for all of your eggs. It's the other thing I do. So for the filling, right? Use it. It just gives you more body. more flavor. So the first thing, mash your egg yolks first. Before you add anything else, mash up the egg yolks. So you're going to mash your egg yolks. Then I use anywhere from a quarter to a half a cup of mayo. It's going to depend on how big your eggs are, therefore how big your yolks are, and what consistency you like your filling, whether more dry or a little bit more wet or somewhere in between. And then I use a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. You can use regular yellow mustard if that's what you have on hand, or a super grainy mustard, whatever kind you like. I like the Dijon. I'm not a big mustard person, like at all, but it just adds a nice little tang to the eggs that I really like. And then salt and pepper to taste. And I used about a half a teaspoon of dill, maybe a little bit less. But again, it's all to taste. So put a little bit in. You think it needs a little bit more, add some more. You can always add, you can't take out. So that's super easy. And then I use just a regular teaspoon, like for, that you would eat cereal with, and scoop it in to each half an egg. And then you always finish with paprika on top. And then you've got beautiful eggs, and they're delicious. And they're one of my favorite things to bring because they just make people so happy.
They make people so happy, and they're so tasty. And it's what I love about what the recipe you just said. It's just so basic, but you put that twist on it with the dill to add that little bit of herby, just deliciousness. I'm going to have to start doing that with mine.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. So I made a batch this weekend. So because I, like you, don't measure ever. Like if I'm cooking.
Who would? That's why I don't like baking. Cooking, you can measure and taste and measure.
Right.
You know?
Like cooking, I mean, baking I do occasionally because it also makes people very happy, what chocolatey deliciousness doesn't.
True.
But with cooking, it's just like, I feel like this. I feel like that. So I actually had to bake it so I knew how much of everything I put in. But it was an excellent batch. They were very, very good.
Yum. See, now I'm gonna want to be making them, and my boyfriend loves them. His sister loves them. His niece loves them. I mean, you can't go wrong with them.
Nope, you really can't. Well, I think that's what we have for tonight, everybody. So we also, feel free to shoot us a message. Tell us what your favorite thing to bring to a picnic is. Or if you're like, hey, how do I make such and such? Let us know. We'd be happy to try to tackle it for you. And we'll see you next time on Abbycadabra and Pesto Page-O.
And next up, we have Abby and Kitlas doing It's Bro Time.
Don't call it a comeback. And the Warriors might have just done that. Abby, how we doing over there?
I'm doing great. How are you?
No complaints here. Got to watch some wild basketball, prepping for the first Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final since 2011 tonight. It's a fun time to be a sports fan, ain't it?
Oh, it is. It is. It truly is.
Well, let's get into it with the game that was Monday night. And I think everyone thought it was just about over, especially in the second when KD, the Golden Sniper himself, just dropped the ball and went down. And somebody on this podcast had been saying for a while that it was an Achilles. Can you remind me who that may have been?
Oh, you?
I believe it was. And I said that since the moment. And by no means am I a doctor. It's not medical advice for anyone ever. But just a small reminder that I did say it didn't look like a calf to me. And he looked fine during warm-ups. He was out there dunking. And I was a little worried when in the first. Did you see that he went to the bench and they ended up wrapping his calf for a while?
I did. That's never a good sign.
And that should have been the sign when the doctors were like, hey, might be time to hold this guy out. Sure enough, 3 minutes later, after he hit 2 threes and kind of got in Van Fleet's face, he went down permanently. So it's a scary thing, and I don't know, what was your takeaway from everything?
It is too bad, and you have to wonder, did they just bring him back too early? Should he have just sat out the rest of the season? Because what does he have, 3 weeks before he goes into free agency? And what does this mean for his chances of getting a contract worthy of his skills? Was it worth it for the 12 minutes he played? And I know he did great. He had an awesome 12 minutes, but to go down and tear your Achilles and need an MRI, and it's a big deal in especially every sport, but especially basketball. I wonder how it's going to affect the rest of his career.
I think too, the thing that I'll say is 100% KD certainly was the presence that they needed. It was a lot in game 4 where Steph didn't have the help. He was 2 for 9 from three land, and he just didn't have that presence. And having KD back, the Durantula certainly helped the Warriors. So I think it paid off for them. I don't know if they can survive another game like that, especially with Boogie Cousins basically giving Kyle Lowry the chance in the driveway of, this is my chance to win the championship. The time's ticking down. I get to throw it up right here and win it, and the entire town goes crazy. He had that moment and couldn't do it. But I just don't know if the Warriors can survive another game like that.
I don't know either. And it was interesting. I was looking at the box score from the game, and you can see where, KD left. Warriors 34 points in the first, 28 in the second, 22 in the third and the fourth. And the Raptors were right there with them. They fell behind in that first. They only put up 28, but then it was same 28-22 in the second and the third and the fourth. They came up with 27 points, but just was not enough to overcome what happened in that first quarter. And you have to wonder, is it because of KD? And how do the Warriors handle this going into potentially the last game?
And it will show that they did a great job rebounding in the third after game 4. That the Raptors came out after their adjustments and in the third put up 37. This time you hold Kawhi Leonard to 1 point in the third. That tells you everything that you need to know about how that defense turned things around right there.
But then Kawhi, he came up with 10 in the fourth and knocked that 14-point lead right down. So they weren't holding him down as much as they wanted to.
Not at all. It's just now up to the Raptors. Can they close it? That whole 3-1 series and the Warriors, you may have heard that one before where they blew a 3-1 lead. You never know, though.
Oh yeah, they're gonna do it again. So I was looking into that, and the last 34 best of 7 games where they were 3-1, 33 of those teams won, and the Warriors are the only team to blow that 3-1 lead in the last 34 instances. And LeBron and the Cavs in 2016, but is it a curse? Are they gonna go down blowing that 3-1 lead yet again?
It would be nice if they get the right histories wrong in that instance, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm personally going to be watching to see Serge Ibaka. He's been the difference maker for Toronto and has been a gigantic wet blanket for the Warriors as far as defense. So we'll see how things turn out tomorrow night. Tune in. It's pretty much must watch at this point, I'd say, between Drake and Draymond almost getting into a fight. And let's see, the last home game where the Beehive came after, or was it the Bayhive? I don't know these things. Came after the Warriors owner for talking to Jay-Z across from her. Man, it's always fun to watch the NBA this time of year.
Very intense. Lots of things to pay attention to on and off the court.
Oh, yeah. And let's cool things down off the court and get on some ice, because tonight, as I mentioned earlier, tonight at 8 o'clock, we have the first Game 7 in 8 years, if my math is correct, since 2011 for the Stanley Cup. The winner tonight will be hoisting it, either the Boston Bruins or the St. Louis Blues. The Blues really had their hot hand spoiled, and if you were watching the game on Sunday, Charlie McAvoy literally saved the day with one of the craziest saves, helping out Tuukka Rask as the puck got behind him, and he swatted it out of midair. It's been tough, and I'm interested to see how home cooking and how excited Boston is tonight.
Boston, I think, is going to be really excited. But, before we delve into this, a little heavy heart, worried about David Ortiz, Big Papi after his shooting. So I know Boston is a bit of a heavy heart, but definitely hoping the Bruins can bring home that Boston trifecta tonight, which would be amazing. But yeah, that save was ridiculous. I was like,
out of control.
Where did that puck go? Oh, it's just sitting between his shoulder blades. And then just boop, out it goes. I was like, yep. I'm not sure they could replicate that.
Oh no, and the best part of that too was Tuca was standing on his head as it was, just stopping everything he could to keep his
Mm-hmm.
guys in this. And when you get that kind of help, that's just all the boost that you need. So if there was any doubt who was going to continue to run with it in between the pipes, Tuca knew that he had his guys had his back and he had everything under control. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be one of the biggest storylines going in. And then looking at home cooking, that the home teams in winner take all games, 12-4. 12-4. Like, what else do you need? You have the crowd behind you, you have statistics behind you. I think we know where the cup's going to end up this year.
I think so. Fingers crossed it is. And yeah, Bruins were also the team in 2011 that went 7 games, and they did win. They beat the Vancouver Canucks. So I think history's behind them, and we know Boston's behind them, for goodness sakes. But
Absolutely.
and as long as Rask keeps making those stops and they keep scoring,
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a good game tonight.
Marchand had been electric, and now he's basically magic. And the way that Tuukka Rask has been playing, like, it makes the guys that are around play above their baseline to try to help this man out too.
Yep. But I do have to say, it would be. I mean, I want the Bruins to win, obviously, but the Blues, which I did not realize, starting the season, were the worst team in the league after
Oh yeah,
30 games,
they sure
and
were.
they would be the first team to win a Stanley Cup ever, coming from that far behind. And who doesn't love a good underdog story? But I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see. But you've got Chara playing with broken jaws, and so it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be great.
It certainly will. There's going to be some great things to watch. And speaking of curses, I mean, let's kind of look at some of the things leading up to that too. I'm not sure if you saw this, but the St. Louis Post-Dispatch released a congratulations on their e-edition hours before that game, the puck dropped, and even had online ads and a thank you from the editor to the team congratulating them on their Stanley Cup win. I'm not one to be superstitious. I am a little stitious though. How would this sit with you if you're on the Blues? And hey, we had to roll the champagne out of the room already once.
Yep. And, if anybody is superstitious, it is athletes. They are some of the most superstitious people I've ever seen, from Nomar Garcia Parra's crazy wrist adjustments to how you throw a ball to how you play and all the prep you do for a game, especially one as big as the Stanley Cup. I would be livid. And whoever released that and didn't proof that before going out probably no longer works there, would just
It's
be my guess.
I
Not
would
good.
certainly hope not, but I mean, if there's any guy who's going to be ready tonight, and thankfully there's a 2-day layoff from that Sunday, Brett Hall, who was absolutely smashed out of his mind before the game. So if I'm cheering for anyone to hopefully get the Blues a cup, it's for Brett Hall, because I think that man's going to have some fun with it, much like Ovechkin did last year for Washington, all the keg stands and everything out of it. I
Mm-hmm.
really think Brett Hall is going to be doing that on a daily basis if that cup comes to St. Louis.
There you go. I mean, what else do you do with a giant cup? I mean, come on.
Well, let's see. So, of the things, and this is a fun little way for us to end it, of the favorite things that I've seen, Phil Kessel ate hot dogs out of it. Mikey Richards for the LA Kings ate cereal out of it. So there's been many of guys who have gone about doing some different things, we'll call it, with it, to where even it wasn't Sidney Crosby, it was another one of the Pens, but they put their baby inside the cup too.
Aw. That's
And
hilarious. I
see,
mean, you got to do something fun with it.
you have to do something fun, and if you play for the Penguins, you need something endearing to the fans, so that way, people actually like you a little bit. Sorry, Pittsburgh natives.
Oh, it's too funny.
Well, that's going to do it for us here. We hope you guys enjoy the games tonight. We hope you get to see some championship banners, and we hope to bring you another championship performance next week at the Newsstand.
CorBen, the
Yes.
Tony Awards, hosted by I Love James Corden, took place the other night, and Hadestown took everything.
They swept everything. Well, can I just say, before we
Yes.
get into it too much, I have not seen the show since I saw it before it hit Broadway. I saw it about had a friend who was stage managing it, and she said, "Hey, I have a ticket if you want it." Blah 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 blah. So I go, and I was just so blown away, and I was like, "If this is what it is now, like this is." And it's not even on Broadway. I can only imagine what it's like when it gets to Broadway. And I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. It's spotless.
And their clips have been going viral on Instagram.
Yes.
Every single time I go onto
Yes.
my Discover page, it's the cast of Hadestown. So quickly tell us, what is the show about?
So it is a modern day take on a Greek tragedy. So Orpheus, who goes down into the underworld to find his love. And what it is, it has this Cajun New Orleans sound to it, and it's just so modern that it could go for anything, and it can be set in any time in any era. And it's basically talking about, can you trust even though your love is behind you and you can't see them. And it's just what they have done with it, everything from its early days, and the lyricist and writer, she talks about this like, this has been such a long journey, and I want to thank everyone from being with us from the beginning days in Virginia to Atlanta and just going all around the world with it. And I'm just, it's a testament of theater and what theater can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy for the entire cast. I love how diverse they are. I love the story. I think that it's interesting. I love, one of my favorite movies is She's the Man, which of course was with Amanda Bynes and Channing Tatum, which was a modern day take on Pygmalion. And I loved it. And there's something about those storylines that still works today. But let's get into the beef, because we need to have a debate about this. You and Adriana are all about the Oklahoma revival, which did take home Best Musical Revival. Fine, congratulations. I'm just not about it. Why don't you start off and tell me why you're so in love with it?
Okay.
And I will listen.
First of all, congratulations to Ali Stroker, who won Featured Actress in a Musical.
Yeah,
and
she's fabulous.
Her vocal, she's come a long way since the Glee project, man. I
Mhm.
mean, she is just a force to be reckoned with. Because I remember after that, she did after Glee, she did Spring Awakening, and her career has just been great since. But anyways, what I like about this in Roger and Hammerstein is it is effortless. And it is something that, again, will resonate throughout the time. So the fact that they chose to put it in a modern day contemporary setting, I love that. Because what they did, for a quick deviation, what they did with Carousel, yes, that's great. But I would have loved to see them do it in a contemporary take as well. I just think, I love the setting. I love how intimate and how rowdy and how the ruckus, and I hate to say this, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone, how hillbilly it is. I love that so much, and it resonates to the time, because I feel like for people who aren't average day theater goers, to be transported back in time, if this isn't the world that they come from, then we'd be like, okay, great. But because it was put in a contemporary setting, and because it is something that they can recognize today, I'm like, I'm in awe. And and I will say this, and then you can speak. I love how they reimagined it. That's all I'm going to say. They reimagined it for a specific time, for a specific setting, and it works. For me, it works.
You know that face I make when my
I
double
can see
chin comes out, my lip is curled, and my one eyebrow is raised, and I got my eyes half open, and I'm going,
Flutter,
that's
flutter,
the face
flutter.
I'm making right now. Here's my thing, and I think that this is really just exclusive to me. I listened to the Oklahoma soundtrack on a trip down to South Carolina when I was 8, and I listened to that and only that all the way down and all the way back. And at the time, I was just sort of hitting that point in my life where I started to slip behind my peers academically. And Oklahoma was the one soundtrack that could just take my imagination and let me run with it. You have such a diverse mood of music, everything from I Can't Say No to What a Beautiful Morning, all the way down to Poor Judd is Dead and The Farmer and the Cowboy. I love that. I want to go back to that time. I want to see women in skirts that look like picnic tables. I want to see a golden settee with a satin. What are the lyrics? A shiny little Surrey with a fringe on the top and genuine leather inside. And oh man, that's what I want. That's what I think of when I think of Oklahoma, and that's all I want to see. Now I am also, and I admit this freely, I'm a stick in the mud. I don't like change. I don't like surprises. I'm not interested. And so for me, as someone who I have a vision and that's what I stick with, I cannot get on board with the idea of a revival. However, I do think the cast is absolute dynamite. I think that Ali Stroker, I remember when I
Oh,
first saw her on Glee, not only was it her body language, and I don't care that she's in a wheelchair, like what it wasn't just her body language and her comedic timing, but her voice, even back
oh,
then when it was so new,
raw,
it
and it
was
was, yeah,
really special. Really special. And I love that she has worked with the people that she's worked with and taken the time for herself to really strengthen and mold her vocal cords and richen her range. And I think that as an artist, I think that she's absolute like tens for me, tens across the board, as
yeah.
well as the rest of the people in the cast, both the soloists and the ensemble members. I think everyone's fantastic. But again, as someone who's a traditionalist and boring, I just don't want to see it set in America today. I want to see it set in America 500,000 years ago.
Well, and
So,
to your point, we go to theater to escape, to leave for a moment, if not an hour and 30 minutes, then 2 hours to leave whatever troubles or woes we have before we walked in. That's why we go. And I guess for someone, as you just said, who is a traditionalist, if it is set in modern day America, and if you've never and if you don't leave by at the top of the show, and if you're not transported, I get how that can do you a disservice.
you know what I think it is? When I think of Oklahoma,
Hmm.
I, well, I wonder if this would have made a difference for me if it came out in the fall. Because for some reason, right in between like end of summer, early fall, my mind always goes to down south, always,
Yeah.
or the Midwest. I'm always thinking about those beautiful hot summer days and those crisp summer nights and s'mores and leaning up against a tractor and
Yeah.
running around in jean shorts, but like a giant oversized hoodie with my Crocs. Like, that's what I think of. So maybe it's just a seasonal thing for me. I have no
Yeah.
idea, but I just can't. And I'm happy to watch the clips. I am so proud of the cast and the crew and all production and everyone for really putting a lot of thought into how they wanted to reimagine a classic and doing it with honor and respect to the original. I just
Tasteful, yeah.
can't. Yeah, man, I just can't do it. Um,
Well, enough. Well,
yeah.
and I'm glad you said that. Uh, did you have any other highlights from that night? Yeah, last night, last night.
Everyone has been bing bong, bing bong. Oh my gosh, the opening number. I was kind of meh, meh. And I thought about it because I love James Corden. And how cool was it to see all of the people from all those different shows, not just
Yep.
sort of flash across the stage like they typically do, like, oh, Bing Bong, we're here, bye. But I loved seeing them all together. The amount of talent on that stage was
Yes.
just like enough to blow
Yeah.
me clear out of my pajamas and into the next town. But
Yeah.
it didn't it didn't wow me in
Mm-hmm.
terms of lyrics and melody. But then I thought about this because I'm sitting there, I'm like, Sam, you really need to take a chill pill. Like, you're being way too critical here. But I think what I need to remind myself is that that opening number is not meant to be an iconic classic musical. It's not. It's meant to be a number that introduces a show, that introduces a year of theater and does everyone the honor that they deserve and gives them the recognition they deserve. So that's what I have to keep in mind. But I also think James Corden, when he opened it with that song, like that could be you or whatever it was called, whatever they ended up
Mm-hmm.
calling it. And he went through every single musical. I thought that was just so clever and so well done. And
Yeah.
it couldn't be topped. And that was proven. So also now that we're in, and by the way, this is the world premiere officially of the name of your segment. What's the name of your segment,
Oh, I guess
Corben?
it is. That's showbiz.
That's showbiz.
That's
It can either
showbiz.
be that's showbiz or it can be that's showbiz or it can be that's showbiz. Bye. however
I'm dead. Well,
however you want to say it. But what
for
did you
me,
think?
okay, first of all, and I've said this to you before, my heart and my passion is film and TV. but theater has humbled me time and time again. And last night was a testament. And I am so lucky and fortunate to do what I do and to also have a stage career on the side also. And I was like, you know what? And someone said this in an interview, not even Broadway, but just the Tonys is such a unifying experience. And it's such a unifying community where everyone comes together because, it was a tremendous season. Cher, Hadestown, Tootsie, Oklahoma Revival, Kiss Me Kate.
Can we talk about the Cher?
Sure. Well, you know what? And I've said this before, for me, I don't know. And when I get back to the city, it's the show that I plan on seeing so I can get a better, do a better review on. I don't know how well personal stories like that have on Broadway. But I always respect work, and I always respect a job as a job, and this is a business, and I always respect those opportunities that come along. For me, I don't know yet. Once I see it, then we can have another review and another go at this.
Okay.
And we'll key. But I commend Stephanie J. Block because this is a long time coming for her in her career. She's uber talented. And all those dancers are equally talented. But the Cher show itself, is that a story? I don't know.
Yeah.
We need to see it so that way we can, better put a better stamp on it.
I agree. Let's wait until it comes out. Like, let's see it. I love Cher. I obviously love the story of her career, but I also have so enjoyed watching her daughter transition into her son. And but I agree, human interest pieces, does it really translate? Well, I think the Carole King musical, I think it works because she is a musician and she has written for so many different artists and so many different lyricists and composers that she's collaborated with. And I think that that's why it works, because it ties back to music. Whereas Cher has also done some incredible projects, but how much has she actually touched Broadway itself is, sort of debatable. It's a little bit more of a gray area. And so, I think that
someone pointed this out last night too. It kind of mirrors the Donna Summer's musical where you have 3 versions of Donna Summer. And, I'm curious to see when Tina Turner comes to Broadway because it's been all the rave and all the success over in the West End, over in London. I'm very excited to see how well that translates over here. And like I said, like we're saying, it's not that we don't disagree with it, but it's like, how well does a self-interest piece do on Broadway?
Right.
And I always respect work. I respect that, people have jobs and that they're working.
Of course. But you have to think about what's going to translate to stage. And even like, okay, let's talk about the SpongeBob musical. SpongeBob was obviously a TV show, but it was the best musical I've seen in probably over 10 or 15 years. And I think the reason why it worked was because they had so many different people coming in and writing the music, and that everything was tailored to that specific character, to that storyline. I think that's why it worked. We think about ABBA and Mamma Mia. We listen to ABBA and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're making a musical based on their music. And you're thinking, whoa, wait, what? But it worked. But again, that is different from what we're seeing with the Cher musicals. So I completely agree with you. I want people to have jobs. I want this to be a thing. I want this to work, but it's going to take a certain ear and a certain eye to really.
Who's it going to really? Right. It's only going to appeal to a certain audience, and I want it to succeed. But again, as we're saying, how well will it? Like you just said, it's going to appeal to a certain kind of audience. Yeah. How will it translate?
Totally. So. Well, CorBen, thank you very much, and congratulations on having your very own segment. It was sort of a long time coming, and I wanted to make sure to give you one that made a lot of sense. So thank you very much for agreeing to lead that show business, and also thank you for closing out. And thank you for closing out this episode with me. So you guys, thank you once again for tuning in every single week. We love hearing from you. We love seeing you guys tuning in. We love your feedback. Thank you so much. From Whatever You Say Productions and At the Newsstand, my name is Samantha.
And I'm CorBen.
And you've just listened to At the Newsstand. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you for listening to At the Newsstand, presented by Whatever You Say Productions in affiliation with Slam It with Sam and Oh My God Newspaper. To learn about these and more, join us at whateveryouSayProductions.com.